Hi, this is Dr. Richard Ruling, here to share with you on the Total Health channel. In seeking it, if you don't find it, please type in my name as well, because there's more than one Total Health channel, Richard Ruling, R-U-H-L-I-N-G. We're covering the fourth seal today. Let's ask God's blessing as we spend our time together. Heavenly Father, thank you for the light of truth, which is more precious than life itself. Christ is the truth, and He has given His life for us. Help us to walk in the light that you have given us today. And please do exceeding abundantly for His sake. We ask it in His name. Hallelujah. Well, I'm not a trained preacher, and I often forget things while I'm talking to you. I'm speaking without notes, but sharing from my heart. And yesterday we talked about the law, the third seal. This is the reason why peace is taken from the earth in Isaiah 24, verse 5 and 6. But in reflecting on the law, I like to share end-time insights, and one that I failed to mention is related to Leviticus 19, verse 27. It says, "You shall not round the corners of your head, nor mar the edges of your beard." And obviously I have done that. I've marred it. I've cut my head, my hair really. But the point is that when we make the covenant, we won't be doing that. And the covenant, we look forward to an opportunity at Second Passover if Christ knocks. When we open to Him immediately, that 7 days of unleavened bread feast includes the seventh being a mark of God's end-time truth, just like the book of Revelation is. And there are 7 blessings for not cutting your hair. I mean, it's in Numbers 6, the 6th chapter. The Nazarites, Nazir means separate, and Joseph was the first one who was separated. It's the blessing of Jacob on his son Joseph said, the one who was the crown of the head of one who was separated from his brothers, Nazir. And probably Joseph wasn't shaving in prison, but when he went in to see Pharaoh, he did shave. And if we go public before press or something, maybe, I don't know. But once a year, when we eat grape juice and have the communion service, it's a time that we must we get a fresh start. We shave our heads. That's what they did in Numbers, the 6th chapter. You're not to eat grapes or anything from the vine. That's one of the hardest parts. I love the raisin bread toast I had this morning. But looking forward to that, the 7 blessings are that, and you've heard these 6 of them before, commonly stated by HMS Richards on the very first religious radio broadcast in this country. He would end it saying, "The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make His face to shine upon you. The Lord be gracious unto you. And the Lord lift up His countenance upon you, give you peace." And the 7th one is, "And they shall write my name on the children of Israel." That's huge, because God's name is the 144,000 written in the forehead. I don't know how that happens, except we can cause people to think about it, and He will write His book of remembrance for us in Malachi 3:16. So that's just something we didn't cover on yesterday, and today we come to the 4th seal. The 4th seal is the pale horse. It is described as death and hell, and it really reflects the papacy, which, because of pestilence, during the Dark Ages, the bubonic plague, Black Death, ravaged Europe, along with smallpox and other infectious disease. It was linked to that, and so when we see the pale horse and pestilence, you know, like it says, sword, famine, pestilence, we've dealt with the sword of the red horse, the famine of the black horse, now the pestilence of the pale horse. And there are probably 7 changes in God's law we could talk about, but we cover some of them in other topics, just like we covered the God's name is removed from the 10 Commandments, where you see only Lord. We dealt with that under the 1st seal. But Seventh-day Adventists are familiar with the change of the Sabbath, and we won't dwell on that except to say that today there are little groups here and there that are starting up and considering that they only keep the Sabbath from during the day part of the 24-hour period. Well, I believe that God gave us a rule of first use. In Revelation 1:11, Christ is Alpha, Omega, first and last. And the first place we find a word or concept, it often has a deeper meaning or explanation for us to understand. And in the very first chapter of the Bible, we find that God said the evening and the morning were the first day, 24-hour period. And the evening and the morning were the second day. The evening and morning were the third day. He wants us to get it. The day begins in the evening. If we start the day right, we can wake up early in the morning and have a clear mind and know what we're going to do, perhaps. So let's honor the full day of the Sabbath. And also in support of this is the fact that the 2300 evening mornings, Erev Boker, were the prophetic time that pointed to 1844. And the Day of Atonement is also to be observed from the evening, specifies this in Leviticus 16th chapter, and also, and Leviticus 23. So, having said that, we're not going to deal more with the seventh-day Sabbath, but we're failing to see that the papacy boasts of abolishing the Jewish festivals. In abolishing them, they have picked up every pagan festival they could, from Halloween, a time for demons. They call it All Saints' Day for the church. But Christ Mass is a celebration of the death of Christ, and certainly not, December 22 was not when he was born. He was born when shepherds were in the field, and probably at the Feast of Tabernacles, because he came to tabernacle among us. It's an 8-day feast, and Christ was circumcised on the 8th day. So all this fits probably the meaning of the Feast of Tabernacles, which we look forward to celebrating in the fall on the 7th month. And then there's, so we want to look at God's feasts that were abolished or changed by the papacy. And the fact is that by changing the calendar, they made it hard to observe those feast days. Originally, the calendar, God said in Exodus 12, verse 2, that that it was the beginning of the month and the first month of the year when they were looking at a Kodesh, a thin crescent moon seen in the western sky after sunset. I don't think Moses was staring at a blank sky when God said, this is the beginning of the month, the first month of the year. It was a thin crescent. Most Jews understand that. Although today they go often by the dark of the moon when you can't see any moon at all as the start of the month. Well, God defined the Sabbath as the 15th day of the month. In Leviticus, the 23rd chapter, 6th and 7th verse, it's about Passover. But in the 11th verse, it shows that Passover is also a 7th-day Sabbath. And if it's a 7th-day Sabbath, they were counting from the new moon. After the new moon day, you shall work 6 days and rest the 7th, and rest 6 days, work the 7th, so that the 8th, 15th, 22nd, and 29th were Sabbath days in Bible times. We see this again in John 19, verse 31, when Passover was a high day, it says. It was explained to me that the high day meant that the 7th-day Sabbath coincided with the Passover Sabbath at Christ's death when he was in the grave. And we see that for the first month, but lo and behold, when we come to Exodus 16, where the first mention of the word Sabbath is found, it's not found in Genesis 1, and it's found in Exodus 16th chapter. First verse says it was the second month, 15th day, when God was talking to Moses, and he said that he would give them manna for 6 days and none on the 7th day. Well, if he's going to give it 6 days from the 15th, the 7th day would be the 22nd, with a Sabbath. And that fits perfectly with what we said about the first month, Abib, when the Passover comes. Now, the point is, in all this, that you cannot have the 15th day of 2 months in a row as Sabbath unless you're counting from the new moon. Otherwise, the month changes with 30 days, If the month had 28 days, they would always be on the same day, because 7 days of a week, and every 28 days a new month. But there's 30 days to the month, extra days, and so there is a new moon element, which we find in 1 Samuel, when David was running from Saul and didn't want to show up at the new moon. He was afraid of Saul, really. He said, "I'll be missed at the new moon if I'm not there at the feast." Well, apparently it was a social time, just like a monthly holiday. We take holidays maybe 2 weeks in a row. The employment doesn't want to let you off at odd times, but they give you 2 weeks. Well, in God's calendar, it was the new moon day of the month. Women took time off to take their children to see a prophet. That's maybe when they brought their children to Jesus in Matthew. We see that as a time of social occasion, basically. And so we could honor that, and we look forward in heaven in Isaiah 66, "From one new moon to another, and one Sabbath to another, shall all flesh come before me." Well, if we're getting ready for heaven, what's the problem with honoring God's calendar here? Okay, and so, but the point is that when end times click in, and we take a covenant for these times, we will fit like a square peg in a round hole, because every month it will be it changes as far as the time off, and it will be difficult to work for an employer. But end times, the economy is, they won't be employing you long anyway, because the economy is going to crash. So we might as well honor God's calendar and be blessed. And the lunar Sabbaths are a biblical thing. I know Arnold Bowen in Conyers, Georgia, who offered $1,000 to anyone who could show a annual Sabbath, a seventh-day Sabbath on any day in the month other than 8th, 15th, 22nd, and 3rd and 29th day of the month. There are other places, but what I've just shared with you is the basis for God's calendar. So, having said that, I appreciate your taking a look and praying about it, studying it. On tomorrow, Sunday, March 17, get a copy of this 9/11 book, which is has more truth to consider. It's about God's clues, Christ's clues, really, in Matthew 24 and 25 for 9/11. It's Numbers 9, verse 10, 11, when the end times will begin. Different dimensions. If there are 6 parables that all have end time event perspectives, meaning different things, but they all have the same timing, it means it's going to be one big event with a lot of impact coming. 1 in the field, 2 in the field, 1 taken, the other left, martial law, and the evil servant begins to smite. The goodman has his house broken, maybe because he wasn't watching. Okay, watching is protective of the earthquake, etc., that initiates the end times. You can see that in Joel 2, 10, 11, earthquake, day of the Lord. And but there's one more signal for us, and that is when you see Jerusalem compassed with armies. It's Zechariah 14, 1 and 2. All nations will be gathered against Jerusalem for the day of the Lord. So that time is impending. Wake your friends up. Share this information. Read about it. Start talking about it, because it doesn't come automatic. If you can't explain it to someone else, study it till you can. In medical school, in my 3rd year, it was see one, do one, teach one. See an IV. Start an IV and then tell somebody else how to do it. So we learn by doing and by explaining. The wise servants have light to share. God's servants in Matthew 22 are the ones that invite to the wedding feast, and it's not about crackers at Passover. It's about unleavened doctrines and teachings that we've been talking about. And so tomorrow we're going to talk about another topic, the 5th seal. And so thank you very much for considering this. God bless you.